I stood there in that coffee shop, watching her walk away for what I knew would be the last time, and I finally understood why every woman I'd ever cared about had slipped through my fingers like water. The worst part? I had done everything right. I was polite, respectful, well-mannered, everything my mother taught me a good man should be. But as I watched her leave with someone else, I realized that being nice had been my greatest mistake. I'm going to tell you why in just a second. This is the story of how my politeness became my prison, and how one devastating realization changed everything I thought I knew about attracting women. But first, let me tell you about Janet. It was a Tuesday morning at Starbucks on 5th Street. I remember everything about that moment because it was the beginning of the end of who I thought I was. I'd just ordered my usual, large coffee, black, when she walked in. Janet, 5'6", auburn hair that caught the morning light like fire, wearing a navy dress that somehow made the entire room fade into background noise. She was exactly the kind of woman who had intimidated me my entire adult life. The kind who seemed to exist in a different universe from guys like me. But here's what I didn't know then, what no one had ever told me. She was about to test me in a way that would expose the fatal flaw in everything I believed about attracting women. She ordered her drink, some complicated latte with extra foam, and walked over to the waiting area where I stood, scrolling through her phone. That's when it happened. She bumped into me. Not hard, just a gentle collision as she looked up from her screen. Our eyes met for exactly 5 seconds. I counted later, replaying the moment endlessly in my head. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she said, her cheeks flushing pink. I wasn't watching where I was going. I'm such a klutz sometimes. And here's where I made the mistake that would haunt me for months. Female psychology lesson number 1. What I didn't realize in that moment was that Janet had just given me what psychologists call an attraction opportunity, a chance to show her I was different from every other polite, forgettable man she encountered daily. Women subconsciously test men within the first 30 seconds of meeting them, looking for signs of confidence, playfulness, and sexual interest. But I failed that test spectacularly. "Oh no, you're totally fine," I replied with a nervous smile. "Don't worry about it at all. These things happen." Polite, safe, forgettable. I watched something shift in her eyes, not disappointment exactly, but a kind of mental categorization. I had just been filed away under harmless nice guy, in her subconscious. The spark that could have ignited never even flickered. She smiled politely back, collected her latte when it arrived, and left without another word. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 3 weeks passed. I couldn't stop thinking about Janet, not just her beauty, but the opportunity I'd somehow missed. Then fate, or cruel coincidence, brought us together again. Same Starbucks. Same Tuesday morning routine. But this time, I wasn't alone. I was there with my friend Steven, and Steven was everything I wasn't. Where I was careful with my words, Steven was bold. Where I was polite, Steven was playful. Where I played it safe, Steven took risks. Jane walked in, and I felt that familiar flutter of attraction mixed with anxiety. She ordered the same complicated latte, and as she waited, she looked around the cafe. Her eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of recognition. This was my second chance. But before I could even move, Steven was walking over to her. "Excuse me," he said with a grin that somehow managed to be both confident and mischievous. "I couldn't help but notice you ordered the most complicated drink on the menu. Are you always this high maintenance? Or is this just a Tuesday thing?" My heart stopped. He was being almost rude. Certainly not polite, by any measure my mother would approve of. I waited for Janet to shut him down, to walk away offended. Instead, she laughed. Not a polite laugh. A real one. Her eyes lit up, and suddenly she was engaged, animated, alive in a way I'd never seen in our brief, forgettable encounter. "Only on Tuesdays," she shot back playfully. "On Wednesdays, I'm completely normal. But you'll have to wait until tomorrow to find out if that's true." They flirted for 10 minutes. 10 minutes that felt like watching a master class in everything I was doing wrong. Steven was teasing her, challenging her, creating what I now know was sexual tension through playful conflict. And Janet? She was eating it up. Female psychology lesson number 2. Women are biologically wired to be attracted to men who display confidence and social dominance. When we're overly polite, we're essentially communicating that we don't feel worthy of their attention. We're putting them on a pedestal and ourselves beneath it. This triggers what psychologists call the asymmetrical interest response. When someone shows too much deference, it actually decreases attraction rather than increasing it. I watched Steven get her number. I watched him set up a date for that Friday. I watched him do everything I'd been too afraid, too well-mannered to attempt. But here's the devastating part one haven't told you yet. That Friday night, I couldn't stop myself. I drove past the restaurant where I knew Steven was taking Janet. I told myself I was just curious, that I'd drive by once and go home. I saw them through the window. Janet was leaning forward, laughing at something Steven had said. She was touching his arm. Her body language screamed attraction and interest. Everything about her posture said, "I'm having the time of my life." It was everything I'd wanted with her, happening with someone else, because I'd been too polite to try. But the real devastation came 2 hours later when Steven called me. "Man," he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. "Janet asked about you." My heart leaped. Maybe she was interested after all. Maybe. She wanted to know if you were gay. The words hit me like a physical blow. She said you seem like such a nice guy, but you showed absolutely no interest in her when you met. She figured you must be either gay or have a girlfriend already, because no straight, single man would be that. What did she call it? Neutered, around an attractive woman. Neutered. The word echoed in my head like a death sentence. Female psychology lesson number 3. Women need to feel desired. When we're too polite, too careful, too respectful, we fail to communicate sexual interest. Women interpret this as either disinterest or, worse, as a signal that we don't see them as sexually attractive. They'd rather deal with a man who's too forward than one who gives no signals at all. The crazy thing is, Steven continued, twisting the knife deeper. She said she thought you were cute. She was hoping you'd flirt with her that first time you met, but when you were so formal, she figured you weren't interested. I hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling of my apartment for 3 hours straight. She had been interested. I'd had a chance, a real chance, with the most beautiful woman I'd met in years. And I'd killed it with kindness. But the story gets worse. Over the next 6 months, I watched this same scenario play out with devastating consistency. Every woman I met, every opportunity one had, ended the same way. There was Amanda from the bookstore. I helped her reach a book on the top shelf. We had a pleasant conversation about literature, and I walked away feeling good about my gentlemanly behavior. A week later, I saw her making out with some guy who'd probably never read a book in his life. There was Lisa from my yoga class. We talked after several sessions about meditation and mindfulness. I was respectful, interested in her thoughts, careful never to make her uncomfortable. She started dating the instructor, a guy who openly flirted with half the women in class and had a reputation for being a player. There was Jennifer from work. We had lunch together twice, deep conversations about our career goals and dreams. I was the perfect gentleman, always offering to pay, always walking her back to her office safely. She ended up in a relationship with someone from accounting who she'd known for exactly 3 weeks. Each time, I told myself I was doing the right thing. I was being respectful. I was showing these women that not all men were aggressive, pushy players. But the results spoke louder than my intentions. Female psychology lesson number 4. The cruelest irony is that women do want respect, but they want it from men they're already attracted to. When respect comes without flirtation, without sexual tension, without the thrill of being desired, it reads as friendliness at best and disinterest at worst. We think we're showing them we're different from other men, but we're actually showing them we're irrelevant. The breaking point came at my company's holiday party. December 15th. I'll never forget the date because it's when I finally understood that being a nice guy was destroying my romantic life. The holiday party was at some upscale hotel downtown. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks because Jennifer would be there. Despite her relationship with the accounting guy, I still harbored hope that maybe, if I continued being the caring, respectful friend I'd always been, she'd eventually see me differently. I wore my best suit, navy blue, perfectly pressed. I'd even gotten a haircut that afternoon. I felt good, confident in that quiet, understated way that I thought women appreciated. Jennifer looked stunning in a red dress that made every man in the room do a double take. But she was there with him, Derek from accounting. Derek, who I'd overheard making crude jokes about women. Derek, who'd cheated on his last girlfriend. Derek, who represented everything I thought women didn't want. But there she was, laughing at his jokes, her hand on his arm, looking at him like he was the most fascinating man alive. I approached them during a quiet moment, intending to congratulate them on their relationship like the mature, well-mannered person I prided myself on being. "Jennifer," I said with my best smile, "you look absolutely beautiful tonight." She smiled back, but it was that polite smile I'd become so familiar with. "Ah, thank you. You're so sweet." Sweet. The word every man dreads hearing from a woman he's attracted to. Derek extended his hand. "You must be the famous friend Jennifer's always talking about. Nice to finally meet you, man." What Jennifer said next would shatter everything I believed about myself. As Derek walked away to get drinks, Jennifer turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between pity and confusion. "Can I ask you something?" she said, lowering her voice. "And please don't take this the wrong way because I really do care about you." My stomach dropped. Why didn't you ever? I mean, we spent so much time together, had such great conversations, but you never once made a move. Not even a hint. I kept waiting for you to show some sign that you saw me as more than just a friend. The room felt like it was spinning. I thought I was being respectful, I managed to say. She looked at me with something that might have been sadness. Respectful, yes, but also completely unreadable. "I never knew if you were interested in me or just being nice, because that's who you are with everyone." Female Psychology Lesson Number 5. Women can't read minds any better than we can. When we think we're being obvious with our interest through kindness and attention, we're actually being ambiguous. Women need clear signals of romantic and sexual interest. Without them, they assume we're either not attracted or not available. "I was interested," I said, but even as I said it, I knew how pathetic it sounded. "But you never showed it," she replied gently. Look, Derek is far from perfect. But when he's interested in something, when he wants something, you know it. There's no guessing, no wondering. He made his intentions clear from day one. That's when Derek returned with drinks, and I excused myself to the bathroom, where I stared at my reflection and finally understood what had been happening to me my entire adult life. I should have left the party then. Should have gone home, processed what Jennifer had told me, and started figuring out how to change my approach with women. Instead, I stayed and witnessed the most devastating demonstration of everything I'd been doing wrong. Around 10 p.m., most people had moved to the hotel bar. I was nursing a whiskey, trying to process the evening's revelations, when I overheard a conversation that would haunt me for months. Jennifer was talking to 3 other women from our office, Sarah from HR, Michelle from marketing, and Dana from legal. They were discussing the men at the party, and they had no idea I could hear them from my spot at the corner of the bar. "What about him?" Sarah asked, nodding toward me. "He seems really nice." Jennifer sighed. "He is nice. Really, really nice. But what?" Michelle prompted. "But nice doesn't make you feel anything, you know? Like, he's the kind of guy who would make an amazing husband for someone someday, but you'd never actually want to sleep with him," Dana finished. They all nodded in agreement. "It's so weird," Sarah continued. "Like, objectively, he's attractive. He's successful. He's kind. He's everything you're supposed to want in a man. But there's just no spark, no edge, no excitement. It's like he's afraid to want anything," Michelle added. "Like he's so worried about offending or pressuring someone that he comes across as completely asexual." "The worst part is," Jennifer said, and I could hear the frustration in her voice, "I actually tried to give him signals. I suggested we grab dinner alone. I texted him late at night. I even touched his arm and lingered longer than necessary when we hugged goodbye. And," Dana asked. "Nothing. He was perfectly polite, perfectly respectful, and perfectly oblivious. It was like trying to seduce a golden retriever." They all laughed, and that laugh, not cruel, just genuinely amused, cut deeper than any insult could have. Female Psychology Lesson Number 6. Women want to feel desired by men they find attractive. When we're too careful about showing our desire, we make them feel undesirable. They interpret our restraint not as respect, but as a lack of passion. They want to know that we want them specifically, not that we're just generically nice to everyone. I sat there, frozen, as they moved on to discussing other men at the party, men who were apparently exciting and magnetic and dangerous in all the right ways. Everything I thought made me attractive to women, my politeness, my respectfulness, my consideration, was actually making me invisible to them. I left the party that night feeling like I'd been punched in the gut repeatedly. But as I drove home through the empty city streets, something shifted inside me. For the first time in my adult life, I had clarity about what was really happening. I wasn't failing with women because I was unattractive or unsuccessful or fundamentally flawed. I was failing because I was communicating all the wrong things. I was communicating that I didn't want them. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I started researching attraction, flirting, and female psychology with the same intensity I'd once applied to my career. What I discovered changed everything. Female psychology lesson number 7. Real flirtation isn't about being rude or disrespectful. It's about showing specific interest in a specific woman while maintaining confidence and playfulness. It's the difference between saying, "You're fine, don't worry about it," and saying, "So rude," bumping into handsome strangers like that. I'm calling security. The second response shows 1. Confidence, calling himself handsome. 2. Playfulness, obviously joking about security. 3. Specific interest, acknowledging the interaction as noteworthy. 4. Sexual awareness, framing himself as attractive. I started practicing. Not on women I was interested in. I wasn't ready for that, but in low-stakes social situations. The barista at my local coffee shop. The woman at the grocery store checkout. My neighbor when we passed in the hallway. Instead of just being polite, I started being playful. Instead of just being nice, I started being charming. Instead of just being respectful, I started being engaging. The results were immediate and shocking. The first time I successfully flirted with a woman, I thought I might have a heart attack. It was 5 weeks after the holiday party revelation. I was at a different coffee shop. I couldn't face my usual Starbucks yet, when the barista, a pretty blonde with paint-stained fingers, handed me my coffee. "Rough night?" she asked, nodding at what I assumed were dark circles under my eyes. Olmi would have said something like, "Oh, just working late. Nothing too serious." Numi heard myself say, "Only if you consider battling my mortal enemy rough. But don't worry, I won." She raised an eyebrow. "Mortal enemy?" "My coffee maker," I replied with a grin. "It's been trying to poison me for weeks." Today I finally admitted defeat and came to the professionals. She laughed, a real laugh, not a polite one. "Well," she said, leaning slightly forward, "we do specialize in coffee maker casualties here. I'm Nancy. I'm the guy who's apparently been letting kitchen appliances intimidate him. But my friends call me Kelvin." We talked for 5 more minutes. She gave me her number without me even asking for it. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt like I'd discovered a superpower I never knew I possessed. Female psychology lesson number 8. When we show confidence and playfulness, it creates what psychologists call positive emotional arousal in women. They become more engaged, more interested, and more likely to see us as potential romantic partners rather than just friends. Confidence is attractive because it signals that we believe we have value to offer. Over the next month, I practiced this new approach everywhere. I wasn't trying to get dates or numbers. I was just learning how to engage with women in a way that created spark instead of snuffing it out. The woman at the bank who helped me with my account. Instead of just thanking her for her time, I teased her about having the most organized desk I'd ever seen and asked if she moonlighted as a professional organizer. The server at my favorite restaurant. Instead of just ordering politely, I playfully complained that they'd hidden my favorite table in the back where only the cool customers could find it. My female coworkers. Instead of just discussing work, I started incorporating gentle teasing and playful challenges into our conversations. The change in how women responded to me was dramatic. They smiled more, laughed more, engaged more. They started seeking me out for conversations instead of me always initiating. But the real test was still coming. Because I was about to run into Janet again. 2 months after my revelation, I walked into that same Starbucks on a Tuesday morning. Old habits die hard, and part of me was hoping for a chance to test my new understanding. Jane was there. She was alone this time, no sign of Stephen anywhere. She ordered her complicated latte and moved to the waiting area, just like she had months earlier. My heart started racing, but this time it wasn't from nervousness. It was from anticipation. I walked over and stood near her, and within moments, fate offered me a perfect replay of our first encounter. She bumped into me again. Not the same accident, but she turned quickly while checking her phone and our shoulders collided. "Oh God, not again," she said, looking up with recognition and embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. I swear I'm not doing this on purpose." This time I was ready. Are you kidding? I said with a grin. This is clearly a pattern. First you assault me with shoulder violence. Now you're stalking me. I'm flattered, but you could just ask me out like a normal person. She stopped, stared, and then burst into laughter. Did you just accuse me of stalking you after I accidentally bumped into you? Accidentally, I said, making air quotes. That's what they all say? Next you'll be accidentally spilling your latte on me to get my shirt off. Oh my God, she said, covering her face with her hands, but I could see she was still smiling. I can't believe you just said that. I can't believe you haven't denied it, I shot back. Female psychology lesson number 9. When we playfully challenge women instead of deferring to them, it creates sexual tension and intrigue. We're showing that we see them as equals capable of verbal sparring, not delicate flowers who need to be handled with kid gloves. This type of flirtation makes them feel alive and engaged. We talked for 15 minutes. Real conversation, full of laughter and playful teasing. She touched my arm twice. She gave me her number without me asking. And then she said something that nearly knocked me over. You know, she said as she prepared to leave. I remembered you from before. You seemed really nice, but, I prompted. But this is so much better. You're actually fun. After she left, I stood there processing what had just happened. The same woman, the same situation, but a completely different outcome because I'd learned how to show interest instead of hiding it. Janet and I went on our first date that Friday. The same restaurant where I'd watched her with Steven months earlier. But this time, I was the one making her laugh. I was the one she was leaning toward. I was the one she was touching playfully across the table. 3 weeks later, she told me something that completed my understanding of everything I'd learned. Can I ask you something? She said as we lay in bed after making love for the first time. What changed? What do you mean? When we first met, you were so, I don't know, distant, polite, but not really there. Tonight, you're completely different. What happened? I told her everything. About the holiday party revelation, about overhearing the conversation, about realizing I'd been hiding my desire behind politeness. She was quiet for a long moment. You know what the saddest part is? She finally said. I was attracted to you that first time. Physically, I mean. I thought you were cute, and I was hoping you'd flirt with me. Really. But when you were so neutral, I figured you either had a girlfriend or weren't interested. So I stopped thinking about you that way. Female psychology lesson number 10. Women make quick decisions about men's romantic potential. If we don't signal interest within the first few interactions, we often get permanently categorized as friend or not interested. The window for creating attraction is smaller than most men realize, which is why learning to flirt effectively is so crucial. The thing is, Janet continued, most women don't want men to be overly aggressive or pushy, but we also don't want them to be completely passive. We want to feel chosen, pursued, desired. When you're too polite, it doesn't feel like pursuit. It feels like nothing. That conversation 6 months ago changed my life completely. Since then, I've been in a relationship with Janet. But more importantly, I finally understand how attraction actually works. I know how to create spark instead of killing it. I know how to show interest without being creepy. I know how to be charming instead of just nice. The devastating truth I learned is this. Being polite isn't enough. Being respectful isn't enough. Being a good man isn't enough. You have to be willing to risk something. You have to be willing to put your interest on the line. You have to be willing to flirt, to tease, to create tension and excitement. You have to be willing to fail in order to succeed. Looking back, I realized that every woman I'd ever wanted, every opportunity I'd missed, could have been mine if I'd just understood this one crucial truth. Women don't fall in love with politeness. They fall in love with passion that's been refined by politeness. There's a difference, and that difference changes everything. If this story resonates with you, if you found yourself in similar situations wondering why being a nice guy seems to work against you in dating, then I have something that can change your life the way it changed mine. It's called Unlock the Scrambler, and it's the only system that combines eliminating the nice guy behavior ingrained in so many of us with the most cutting-edge discoveries of modern psychology. Here's what you'll discover. With one simple move, you can stop losing women that initially liked you because you couldn't play the game. Re-enter the dating scene with confidence, at any age. Pass each and every one of women's secret tests. This isn't about becoming a bad boy or treating women poorly. It's about learning to communicate your interest in a way that creates attraction instead of killing it. It's about understanding the psychological triggers that make women see you as a charming guy instead of just a nice guy. It's about finally getting the results you deserve with the women you actually want. So you can gain the attraction of women, project personal power, and avoid the "let's just be friends" speech for good. The link is in the description below. Don't let another opportunity slip away because you didn't know how to show a woman you wanted her. Click the link now and start your transformation today.